time rolls on and it has its own energy, and it's perfect in the way it goes from day and night, seasons, years, everything roll by. And it's an expression of the divine, the very movement of time. As we know in the Gita, Krishna says, I am time, time that takes away everything. Kalosmi aham, he says. The symbolism of the Sudarshana Chakra is also only time that cuts everything. It removes everything. So as long as we are attached to time, we are caught in suffering. That is the simple truth of the manifest universe. Everything that comes in time dissolves. So to come upon the timeless is the essence of true meditation, true self-inquiry. And the timeless is not something that we can ever reach for, because the very reaching for it is done by the sense of me caught in time. That is why the timeless is only realized through negation. The Upanishads also say neti neti, meaning not this, not this. In negating identification with time, the timeless reveals itself, not through trying to catch the timeless. Any sense of, therefore, becoming is caught in time, and it is taking us in the wrong direction. Wanting to become self-realized or enlightened is again the same movement in time. The direct pointer is that the timeless is here and now, and that can be only realized by us through being aware of and therefore not identifying with time. There is the outer movement of time, which happens very naturally, as we said. The body goes through time. The various skills are learned through time. The various activities happen in time. But there is also, along with it, the sense of time built inwardly. The sense of time built inwardly is the story we tell ourselves of a self as an entity within the body which is going through a journey. And this identification or this idea of a journey through time for an imaginary self is the root of all suffering. Every religion is built on this as well. Every apparent dualistic religion. There is all kinds of stories humans have told ourselves, because once we identify with the body as a separate entity, then we want to have some kind of permanence for this separate entity. So we project an idea of a soul, and then an afterlife, and then we talk about heaven, about hell, about next life, All of these are coming forth because of the wanting to project permanence for a separate self. And the idea of a separate self is born out of thinking. We subconsciously and consciously think the separate self into being. A little baby has no self awareness in this way and functions purely in the now without any sense of separation. But the separation is put in by society, put in by culture, also put in by the conditioning from various sources, including genetic conditioning as well. And all of this brings forth the sense of a separate self, which is perhaps a necessary construct for evolution. So it is also part of the play of the divine energy. We see in nature too that birds, animals, all seem to have a very rudimentary sense of self. They are attached to their offsprings, perhaps, and they have territorial claims. All of these are seen in animals too. If we observe animals, we can see these kinds of rudimentary qualities in them, and that is what has become very strongly crystallized in humans because of ability to think. Ability to think is a double-edged sword because that very thinking is what has produced everything we have. We have the most amazing technology around us, the houses and the transportation and all the communication devices. All of this has come through thinking. Just even 200 years ago, the life expectancy was half of what it is now. And all that progress has happened through thinking. But the same thinking, when applied inwardly, causes suffering. And so, this sense of self is also been put together by thought. And that sense of self is causing division. So, every child growing up has this sense of self. And every religion, organized or even not so organized religions, they feed this sense of self through all these various narratives. And it's a very comforting story to tell ourselves that this separation continues even after death. And there is all these realms that are imagined, and there is otherwise afterlife that's imagined, next life. All of these are based on the false assumption of a separate self. So, the direct pointer of self inquiry is to find out if there is a separate self even now. Instead of indulging in any speculation around any of these constructs, whether heaven is real, hell is real, whether afterlife is real, whether past life, next life, all of these constructs are all built on one root, which is the idea of a false self, idea of a self, let's say, before even saying it's false, idea of a separate self. So the question is whether it is true or false. And that is the real essence of inquiry. When we inquire, we recognize that this self is put together only through images by thought. And it is like the spinning of a wheel of fire. If someone has a stick of fire and they spin it really fast, it seems like a circle of fire. So there seems to be a circle there, but in reality, all that is there is only a stick of fire. And because of the fast movement of this stick of fire, it seems like a continuous circle. In the same way, because of the fast movement of thought, it seems like a continuous entity, whereas at any given point, there is only the thought that is there. That is why Ramana Maharshi says, mind is nothing but a collection of thoughts. We think there is an entity called the mind. There is no such entity. All there is only a collection of thoughts. Just as there is only a stick of fire, there is no circle. The circle is an illusion created by the movement of the stick of fire. Similarly, the mind is an illusion created by the movement of thought. Thought is necessary, as we already said, for functional purposes, but when thought is constantly employed to create division between me and the other, and this division is constantly sustained through thinking, then it creates an illusion of a mind, which is the illusion of a separate self. These are all synonymous words ultimately, and we don't need to split them. In fact, many times when people ask Ramana Maharshi, he would say all of these are essentially the same. Whether we call it mind, we call it the me, the ego, the soul, all of these are just referring to the separation, jivatma. So many words are there. And if you go into technical definitions, people will draw subtle differences, but at the end of the day, they're all pointing to this separation. So the direct pointer, therefore, is to not analyze that, but to recognize that all of this is coming forth only through this assumption of a separate self built through unconscious identification. In fact, even the great philosopher Socrates once said famously that a life unexamined is not worth living. But unfortunately, as he pointed out more than 2000 years ago and even now, mostly we live life unexamined. We don't examine, which is to say, we don't inquire into life. So, examining or inquiring is the essence of true meditation, which is called Atma Vichara. So, when we examine our own life, then it becomes worth living, because then there is only the recognition of the intelligence of now. There is this beautiful intelligence that is there in this universe at all levels. If we look at the beautiful ways in which physics, the laws of physics works, the gravitational force, the charges, the electricity, the magnetism, so much of intelligence is operating around us, within us, everywhere. And that very intelligence is nothing but all that is operating as thought as well. So when it is put in its right place, then life becomes very simple. But because of its false identification with a sense of separation, it creates all the misery. So the true art of living is to put thought in its right place. In fact, that's the essence of art itself. Art is to put things in their right place. An art of living is to put thought in its right place. And when we have this clarity, then each moment can be simply a total response to what is, without any division of any kind. When there is any any stimulus, whether it is a person or a thing or a situation, whatever it is, it can be responded to fully with total attention. And that attention is there only when the me is seen as false and denied. Because the nature of the sense of me is to divide itself from what is being attended to, and thereby divide attention, fragment it, and cause a sense of separation. And therefore, it naturally also denies love, because love is nothing but absence of the ego. When the ego is there, there cannot be love. And the ego is nothing but this sense of separation that divides itself from what is. So when we engage in meditation too, if the ego comes through the back door seeking something, then it still denies love. It denies presence, it denies beingness, because it gives the illusion of journeying through time, seeking something. And that very seeking is what keeps us separate from what is. So, to come upon the true ground of the infinite being here and now is to see the falsity of seeking itself. And that can be seen fresh each moment. And when we gather together in satsang, what we are doing is again just seeing collectively together, clarifying anything that comes up, and with fresh eyes, remaining in total attention. Each moment, if we tell ourselves that the sense of me cannot be there, or it has to be removed, it has to be destroyed, all of these can again create conflict, because it is nothing but the same sense of me that says the me should be destroyed. This is the famous example given by Ramana Maharishi of the thief acting as a cop to catch the thief, which we will see in great detail. So that's not what is implied by self-inquiry, is to affirm or to create any division that way, but to just simply inquire whenever the me rises as to who is having this thought, who is having this emotion, who is getting triggered, who is hurt, who is angry. And in this way, when we look into the question who, it reveals the false me. And the very question then resolves the questioner. So normally in meditation, many people focus on the question how. But that's the wrong question. That's what Ramana Maharishi points to by saying, ask who is meditating, who wants self-realization, whatever it might be. Because how implies time again. How means I don't know something, I can learn about it. And that works in the realm of things outside. How to learn an instrument, how to learn a language, how to cook a recipe, whatever it might be, all of these require the question how, because it's a process in time. But here, because as we started out as well, the whole essence of meditation is to come upon the timeless. So we cannot come upon the timeless through time. So the question how will always take us away from now. So that's why the real question is who. When we ask the question who, then it turns us within to this very moment, recognize that the one who questions is this false self, and this false self always functions in time. So, by coming upon this falsity of the questioner of the me, we are freed of that identification. And then what remains is the very ground of awareness itself. Because when the me is denied through questioning, not as an affirmation, not by telling oneself, not by any kind of knowledge from the outside, but by just alert attention, when the me is seen as false, then what remains is pure awareness. Or rather, the awareness is always there, but the cloud that veils awareness is removed through this alert attention. So we come upon what is, that is ever shining, through negating the cloud that veils it. So that removal of the cloud of the ego through alert attention is the essence of self inquiry. And that is also the essence of true acceptance of all. Because if we recognize everything as coming forth from the same intelligence that's all pervading, then in the very acceptance of what is, the narrative of the false me is denied and removed. So, either by inquiring with the question who, or by completely accepting what is, which is the essence of surrender, we come upon the same realization that there is only the ground of awareness which comes forth as intelligence, which functions spontaneously moment to moment. And that way of functioning is the greatest freedom. Freedom of having no attachment inwardly, but being empty within, and in that emptiness there is fullness of attention. Total attention to what is, total love of what is, total response to what is, and then completely letting it go as well. This is the way of living each moment in meditation. There is always some kind of guilt, for example, that the mind can bring forth because of all the conditioning one has as to whether I am walking away from whatever conditioning I have got. But all the conditioning we have is actually only a cage that keeps us imprisoned, including all the religious conditioning. Because true religion is that which we come upon only when the hold of this false religious conditioning goes away. True religion is fearlessness, whereas false religion lives on fear. So, for us to come upon true religion is to is requires courage as well, and that courage is also another name for surrender. If we let go of what we know, only then we can come upon the unknown. To letting go of the known is very essential because the known is always limited. The unknown is infinite. So the finite known can never capture the infinite unknown. And yet the finite known has such a hold on us. Whatever one has conditioning in terms of growing up, religious conditioning, which is largely fear based, all of these come in the way of walking into the true fearless essence of our being. Because if we actually truly, even religions, for instance, say, refer to God as omnipotent and omnipresent, if we truly take that word in its entire essence, then that also reveals the same truth. Because if God is omnipotent and omnipresent, then how can there be a separate self that is distinct from God? And yet, this kind of, let's say, contradiction is found in many religions which speak of an omnipotent God but also a separate soul, and the separate soul then becomes the source of fear. But when we recognize that the omnipotence implies there is nothing other than God, then that's freedom here and now. There is nobody here other than the one divine. So, this is what every mystic has come upon. The great devotees have come upon the same realization. The great yogis, the great jnanis, they've all come upon the same realization that all there is only the one divine, undivided being. And there is nobody here other than that. That is the meaning of Tattvamasi, when the great statement, as it's called, Mahavakya, says Tattvamasi, that thou art, means that alone is. That's another way of saying that. That's in fact literally said in another such statement which says Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahman. Everything here is God. So to come upon that truth is the essence of true religion. Then there is no other religion needed, because this is the highest religion, is to come upon the non-dual, undivided oneness of what is. Then every moment is suffused with the divine, every relation is suffused with the divine, every action is suffused with the divine, and we don't have to then look for it through any activity, but only see it here and now itself. In other words, nothing becomes a means to an end. Everything is an end unto itself. Each moment is an end unto itself. And that is the nature of giving total attention now and living. There is great joy that comes when there is total attention to now. Even the most mundane thing one might do can be suffused with total attention. And that is the essence of love, actually, not attachment. When there is total attention, that brings forth true love as well. So, when thoughts rise as well, for instance, when we sit in silent meditation, those thoughts are also then seen with the same attention. The important thing for us to recognize is that's why that there is no such thing as my thought then. That's the beauty of free observation. As long as we think these are my thoughts, that very first step becomes the wrong step. There is thoughts. It's like if someone is having pain, there is pain. I recently met a friend who is going through a lot of pain, and if you just point out that the pain is not yours, there is pain. To say there is no pain would be false. The pain is the reality of this moment. But to identify with that pain as my pain and then compare it with others or compare it with this version of myself from last year and saying, why is the pain now? Why me? Why is it happening to me? This kind of self talk is what adds suffering to the pain. Suffering can be avoided even when there is pain by just dealing with pain as is, by accepting the pain without making it my pain. Same with thoughts, my thoughts. All of these causes conflict. If we just sit silently and thoughts come up, the thought can be just seen. Even if a thought which is, let's say, greedy or angry comes up, what is necessary is the alertness to observe the thought without getting pulled into it, sucked into it. When we are not sucked into thought, sucked into emotion, but look at it, then the very looking gives us that freedom in which it can be seen and it dissolves on its own. So, attention is not only to things outside us, people outside us, but also to that which rises as thoughts or feelings. The same quality of total attention and love dissolves thoughts or puts them in the right place. Alertness is not something that we can do, because when we are doing it, it again becomes an action of some kind, which is what you are relating. What is very essential is to look at it from a ground of clarity that any identification with thought causes me to be lost in it. And when there is that clarity, then alertness can come on its own. So we need not strive to be alert, but we just need to have the clarity. So, a good example of this, which has been given by, for instance, I think Krishnamurti speaks of this, is if there is a snake coming into the room, I don't have to practice alertness. Right? The alertness is instantly there Just the seeing of the snake brings forth the alertness because I know that it's venomous, and the very seeing is the doing. As you said, when we are caught in doing, it is effort and it causes conflict and all that. But if the very seeing is the doing, then there is no effort there. Just the seeing is enough. So the problem for us is that we don't see clearly. That is the real problem, right? Because the doing happens automatically if there is clear seeing. If a thought rises, we don't see the misery that the thought brings. Psychologically, again, we have to be very clear. We are talking only about psychological thoughts. Thoughts that are necessary have their place in life. Without that, as we already said, we cannot be having all the various things, including having an online meeting like this. All of this is enabled through thought. So, thought has a very essential place in life. It's intelligence itself that's coming forth as thought. But the same thought denies intelligence through this false sense of psyche, self, soul, whatever we call it. So when a thought comes that is going in time, that is wanting to indulge in nostalgia, or that is projecting future, that is identifying itself with some conditioning, all of these, we don't see the danger that is inherent in it. Because when we get identified with a thought, it's only because we think it's like playing with a snake. We don't see the danger in the snake and we play with it, then we are going to be bitten by the snake, let's say. But when we are clear that the snake is poisonous, we don't play with it. So the problem is not alertness itself per se, but clarity which brings forth alertness effortlessly. And that is actually one of the most important things that satsang can help with, right? Is that because in general, when people are engaging in this world, the clarity is missing, and people take on things which are harmful without recognizing it. It's just like even outwardly, for instance, if someone takes, let's say, alcohol, and they think it's fun to take alcohol, and then if you tell them don't drink and they struggle with quitting alcohol but they are not able to quit, the best way to recognize and quit this is to have the clarity of what alcohol does to me. If it is extremely clear that I am injecting poison into my body, then that very clarity is going to stop consuming alcohol, for instance. Psychological thinking is no different. It is just an alcohol of a different kind. So it is also an addiction, which is no different from alcohol, right? We are addicted to psychological thinking, whether it be seemingly pleasant or seemingly unpleasant, right? People wallow in self pity, wallow in fear, wallow in nostalgia, wallow in worry. All of these are addictions of the mind. So, for us to quit any addiction requires clarity and requires right company. So, that's what satsang is, the company that is there that gives us the clarity through which we can be free. We don't have to make it a struggle. As you said, all the doing can tire us. We don't need to do anything if we just have clarity. And if clarity is not there, why is there not clarity? We have to see. That's what self-inquiry is all about, is to recognize with clarity why am I following a thought is more interesting than trying to see how to stop following the thought. There's nothing new when it comes to psychological thinking, right? Every thought, that's why we notice, see, we are the entire human consciousness. The mind is nothing but the whole human consciousness is there in the mind. So there is no such thing as an individual mind actually. That's what you're saying refers to, which is very true, right? You see the same fears, same insecurities, same religious conditioning. Only the subject, the content, the outer content is varied, right? The names are used or varied, whatever. But everyone, the whole human consciousness as the mind is the same. So, as you said, there is no new thought, no new feeling. There can be new thought only in the realm of technology and other things, which is where thought is essential, as we already said, right? There is no such thing as a new fear, a new desire, new anger, new greed. It's all been experienced by everyone. So that's why there is no such thing as my fear, right? We are all having the same conditioning because it's all rooted in the false sense of me, which is there in every human brain. And that is the root of all psychological thinking. So, it just takes different forms. But every emotion has been experienced before, every thought has been thought before, every feeling has been felt before. There's nothing new. And therefore, there is nothing that's mine. That's another pointer to the same truth, that there is no need to personalize anything. It is human consciousness that's operating through the mind. And when we see it that way, then it's not personal. We are the world. Because there is no such thing as my guilt or my fear or my anger. It is just human consciousness that produces this, and it's been there in through millions of years. And the same anger was felt 1,000 years ago by someone, same fears were felt 1,000 years ago by someone. Nothing is new. So when we recognize this, then that gives us the instant recognition that there is no me here. It's just the same waters we are swimming in. And that very seeing can help us step out of those waters instantly.